verse 9, that Herod had under control? The mob, the crowd, the real crowd, I believe, the real Jewish crowd, not some of the ones portrayed in other documents that we're familiar with. Because how do I know the real one? A real crowd kind of behaves like you'd expect it to behave. If a hero's a hero, is a hero, he's a hero. You know, it doesn't start spitting on people suddenly after it's 5 minutes before been greeting them with palm fronds. It's not the way real crowds behave. Heroes are heroes. Greeting with palm fronds. You know, welcome, son of David, and then spitting on the person. There's something. There's a break somewhere there. But in this particular case, when the crowd sees Jonathan put on the high priestly vestments of his ancestors, even Josephus is forced to admit that it weeps. The crowd cries. Cries because it's so moved. You can just picture that happening. I'm sure that's an historical event. Herod is so jealous, so ferociously, insanely jealous, that he has the boy taken down to his summer palace, and I've been there, and there's a picture of it in my book, outside of Jericho. And while he's swimming in the pool down there, has some of his thug guards make believe they're playing rough with him and drowning. And that's the end of the last Maccabean claimant of the high priest. It's a very sad story. It's sad, so sad that it would make you cry if you cared about such things. But since nobody cares about such things, the whole world that we know is uninterested in the Maccabean family, and Jews themselves don't even know the story because it's not in the rabbinic literature, and most Jews don't read Josephus. And Christians preserve Josephus for the most part. Because why did Christians preserve Josephus? They thought he mentioned Jesus. And he does mention John the Baptist, and he does mention James. So it was important for witness to Scripture to preserve Josephus. The people who were writing it or copying it didn't realize they were also conserving a lot of other material that was worse. But that never occurred to the copyists. They just copied it. Anyway, Josephus, I have heard, I'm not an expert on the Greek Orthodox canon, is in the Greek Orthodox canon. So important is it considered to be. Okay. So, the tax debate at the time of the census is presented to you by Josephus as eliciting an argument between one of these descendants of Boethus, Joazar in this case, who is Miriam, the daughter of Boethus, who's Herod's second wife named Mary, of a priest he brings in from Egypt, a more accommodating and manageable priest. And he argues with Judas and Zadok, Josephus said, over the tax issue, and then Josephus goes on to describe the Zealot movement descended from Judas and Zadok, and says that they brought our country to destruction, they more than anything else, because our young men were zealous for it. And then he says, we have three other schools. And he goes on to describe Pharisees, Essenes, and Sadducees. So in the Antiquities, that triggered it. In the war, he just talks about the different sects right after the Quirinius episode. So interestingly enough, in Luke, the story of the birth of the Messiah actually coincides with the story in Josephus of the birth of what we call the Zealot movement. The movement of those people who argued against the tax and the imposition, and that what it implied, the imposition of direct Roman control. Okay, so here in Luke 2:7, and she laid him in a manger and so on, because of the tax, the theory was people had to come down from where they lived to go to their family seat of origin. David is associated with Bethlehem. Why is David associated with Bethlehem? Well, I think the biblical David was born in Bethlehem Arata. And so if the biblical David was born in Bethlehem, so 1,000 years later, the religious, the spiritual David has to be born in Bethlehem according to the mindset of the people writing these things. I don't know why. But in any case, both Gospels really are anxious to get Jesus born in Bethlehem. Luke goes to extraordinary means. He seizes on the census, gets him down there, but that's why there's no room at the inn. But you should look at Luke. I don't think there are 3 wise men in Luke. And there's no star. If I'm not mistaken, that is the case. So you see how in the scenes in the shopping malls, all these things have been conflated. Because they're the popular things. The star, the 3 wise, I've always seen the 3 wise men on their animals coming to the crash and all this kind of thing. No, it didn't happen like that, not even according to the Gospels. It's not in the Gospels. And the star has to do with Jesus' house. And the 3 wise men come and knock on the front door of Jesus' house. The crash, the manger, has to do with the fact that there's no room. So many people are coming down there, and Luke presents him as being born. Okay, guys, I didn't get where I wanted to go to, but we're getting there. Now we're getting into stuff, right? Getting into stuff, and we'll get to this. We may have an exam before Jesus goes to Galilee. We may start pointing toward an exam with Josephus and all this kind of material together, probably before Jesus goes to Galilee. Maybe, hopefully, we'll be able to do that at the rate. I can see at the rate we're going. Okay?
You're going to edit that out.
What?